Hi, I'm Vanessa Conlin, and as part of the Sunset Wine Club, I'm going to be tasting the 2021 vintage of the Lorenza True Rosé from California. Now we're heading into summer right now, which of course we all think of as rosé season, but the truth is rosé is incredibly versatile year round. In fact, it's a great wine to pour at Thanksgiving, which is a notoriously difficult meal to pair because it has so many flavors and textures on the table. And rosé is something that can really carry through almost all of those. But let's start with the name of the wine itself. So Lorenza is the producer. It's California appellation because it's sourced from several different sites around the state. And in some cases, they have 100-year-old plus vines. Well, the other thing to take note of in the title of this wine is that it's called True Rosé. So what does that mean? Well, there are several ways of making rosé. Some in which it's almost a sort of, I don't want to say an afterthought, but it's another way of making rosé that's actually sort of a byproduct of red wine production, and that's called saignée. Saignée means to bleed off. So what happens in that type of rosé production is that a producer who's making red wine will bleed off, which is what saignée means, some of the juice from the tank very early on when it has only picked up a little bit of color from the skins of those black grapes. Therefore, the tank of red wine is more concentrated, and now there's a rosé to sell as well. And you can sell that earlier because red wine is aged. So it's also a way to get a little financial boost sort of early on in the season. But this is not made that way. This is a true rosé, and that these grapes were grown specifically and only to make this wine. So this method is called direct to press. And what that means is after the grapes are picked, they're pressed and the juice is left in contact with those skins only for a short period of time, just to pick up a little bit of this beautiful color. And just fun fact, it's actually not permitted to blend red wine and white wine to make rosé, with one very notable exception in the world, and that is champagne. There are 4 grape varieties in this wine. The first is Mourvèdre. Mourvèdre is grown around France and Spain primarily. In Spain, it's also known as Monastrell. And this grape variety contributes a smokiness and boldness to wine. The second is Grenache, also grown in France and Spain and other places in the world as well, like Australia or here in the United States. It has a sort of wild strawberry note to it, sometimes a little bit of mintiness, and can add a volume and fatness on the palate. The third is Carignan, primarily grown again in France and in Spain. In Spain, it's also known as Carignana and Mazuelo. And lastly, a grape called Cinsault, which is prized especially in Provence in their rosés because it's very fruity, floral, and fresh. One other thing to note about this wine is that this is female owned. It's actually a mother and daughter team, Melinda Kearney and Michelle Oulet, who make this wine. But let's get into this glass. So we're talking a blend of 4 different grape varieties here. The majority of this is Mourvèdre. So Mourvèdre is grown around France and in Spain, where it's known as Monastrell, and it can be kind of smoky and bold. Another grape in this is Grenache. So Grenache, again, grown a lot in France and in Spain. Grenache has a lot of wild strawberry notes, sometimes a little bit of mintiness. It can add a little bit of lushness and almost fatness to the palate. Another grape in this is Carignan. So we're again talking France and Spain. In Spain, this is also known as Mataro or Carignana, and it can add kind of spice to the wine. And then lastly is a grape called Cinsault, which is really prized, especially in Provence for rosés made there, where it can add some floral freshness and just really enjoyable fruitiness. So you can see this beautiful kind of pale pink color here in the glass. On the nose, there's sort of this melon, watermelon, strawberry note to it. Just really perfumed and lovely. There's definitely a lot of floral notes as well. A little bit of spice to it. So if you're tasting with me, really swish it around your mouth. Make sure you let it touch every corner so you can experience not just what you're tasting, but what you're feeling in terms of sensations. So it's very light-bodied, fresh, charming. There's a nice bit of acidity. My mouth is watering. That's great because this is going to make that very food friendly. And pair this with all sorts of fresh vegetables that are growing right now, goat cheese, salads, But certainly you could pair it with something a little bit heavier, something right off the grill. The barbecue would be ideal as well. So just overall, like a really sort of charming, exuberant wine. I know you're going to enjoy this, whether it's by itself or paired at the table. So cheers.